Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening to the beautiful people here on the island of Nevis, those on our sister St. Kitts, those who are listening throughout the Caribbean. Good evening to our friends and family, those in the United States and Canada, those in the United Kingdom, and those who are wherever you may be. Good evening to you. We know divisions are scattered all across the world, and we say good evening to you. Through the miracle of the internet, we can all connect with each other, and so I'm sure that wherever you are, you're listening. And so it is a beautiful evening in Nevis. I couldn't say that last evening because, of course, we were under the strain and stress of Tropical Storm Ernesto, which passed to the south of the island of Nevis. But I'm here to start the show tonight by saying thanks be to God. I believe that all of us should be prayerful and thankful that once again, God has spared us the worst. And so I'm very, very happy to report that based on preliminary reports, the island of Nevis fared fairly well. I have been in touch with our acting Prime Minister, Dr. Jeffrey Hanley, and he has indicated that the island of St. Kitts also fared fairly well. We would have had some damage as expected, some flooding as expected. We had some trees downed and some roads blocked. But I think that the island did well, given the circumstances and given what could have been. We have had no loss of life and no injuries to anyone, and for that we are truly, truly grateful. And so we say thank you, God. Let us not be ungrateful. Let us not take it for granted. Let us give praise and honor and thanks to God Almighty for sparing us yet again. I keep saying it is not because we are worthy. It is not because we are better. It is God in His mercy and His wisdom who has determined that He will spare us yet again. And I emphasize yet again because over the past years we've had a lot of near misses, a lot of almost hits, and each time God has been with us. And so I'm very grateful for that, and I say thank you publicly, and I thank all of our men and women of God who pray for us. A lot of times we take them for granted, but as the churches fill up on Sundays, on Saturdays, whenever the churches fill up, I know that those saints are praying for us, and for that, again, I say thank you. We are indeed truly grateful, and we owe you a debt of gratitude. And so we thank you. Those of us who may have our line a little static on the line now, we're a little rusty trying to get up to heaven, we have our church leaders who intercede on our behalf, and we are truly grateful to them for that. Ladies and gentlemen, the Storm Ernesto really allowed us an opportunity, in fact a unique opportunity. The storm would have passed, of course, closer to Nevis than to St. Kitts, simply because of where it was positioned. But as it goes through the islands, it would have had an impact on Antigua, certainly on St. Kitts, on Nevis, St. Martin. It would have had an impact on the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. And I think it allows us here on the island of Nevis to take a sober look at the state of our infrastructure. And I want to start the show there tonight. You see, as Premier of this island, I have been subject to a lot of attacks and criticisms, a lot of negativity, and many may say, well, that is par for the course, and to some extent I suppose it is. Politics is a difficult business. It is rough and tumble. But I recall that one of the major arguments advanced against me in the last election cycle from no less a man than our former Prime Minister, Dr. Timothy Harris on St. Kitts, a man who, through my support and the support of CCM, was catapulted with his 1 seat into the Prime Ministership, and thereafter with his 2 seats he continued as Prime Minister, notwithstanding that by then CCM was no longer willing to support him in that position. But that aside for the moment, one of the biggest criticisms leveled against me from on high, because at one point, of course, Dr. Harris as Prime Minister truly felt that he was popular. He truly felt that he had the command of the support of the majority of people in St. Kitts and Nevis. He, of course, was delusional, as the polls showed, but nevertheless, he felt that way. And so at the height of him feeling that way, and of course his paid-for crowd shouting, Hosanna, 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 and him feeling that he was somehow on a high, as I said, delusional as he was. He made the accusation against me, an accusation that was parroted by his partners in the NRP in Nevis, that I was a bad spender, that monies that we had got, not as a gift, but as a fraction of what we were entitled to from the Citizenship by Investment program, a national program, that money had been somehow wasted. And so it brings me to a point of reflection, because Ernesto would have come, and I think that by any measure the infrastructure in Nevis stood up well. I have not heard any reports of anybody in Nevis losing water, and so our water system held up well. We had some outages of electricity in some areas, but by last evening, even as the all clear was being given that Ernesto had passed, Nevlec, our electricity company, put out a notice to say that 99.5% of Nevis had already been restored, and they were just now working on isolated instances. Yesterday morning, I heard a sound as the winds howled and the rains fell, and I looked out my window to see the men and women of our solid waste collecting the garbage in pouring rain under threat of Tropical Storm Ernesto. They were out doing their job. The water department was out doing its job. The men and women of Nevlec were out doing their job. And our emergency systems were up and running and responded well. I was getting regular updates from Jack and Gumba. I want to thank Jack, but also from Brian Dyer, who I gather wasn't physically on island, but nevertheless was checking in periodically. I was in touch with the cabinet. Now I want to just make the point that when the accusations came, harsh as they were, there were some in Nevis, as I said. We well know now that the PLP was funding the NRP. And so whatever was said in Sinkis was parroted in Nevis. It's as if whatever teachers say, you say, and that is the way it was. But the argument and the accusations came that somehow we had wasted monies in Nevis. And I have taken the time and time again to point out that far from wasting money in Nevis, we invested money in what I call a sustainable development of this island. We have invested, ladies and gentlemen, in new water storage capacity all across Nevis. Brand new tanks that have been erected all across in Stony Hill and Pond Hill, up there in Burden Pasture, all over Nevis. We have erected these brand new tanks to replace old leaky tanks, and we have fixed old leaky tanks where we could. We have completely reconfigured the distribution of the water system in Nevis and replaced the old iron pipes with modern polyurethane pipes. You all remember seeing those blue pipes all along the road? Those are the pipes that are now there, brand new. And we are now drilling for more water, but I will put that aside for a moment. In electricity, we've bought as a government not one, not two, but 3 brand new Wärtsilä generators. And those generators are now carrying the burden, the load of generating electricity in Nevis. We have consistently upgraded our electricity supply, fixed long-standing problems, and ensured that our electricity supply is now fit for purpose. At solid waste, we have invested in new trucks. We have invested in new equipment. We have invested in our people at Solid Waste in terms of training and development. In fact, I will say to you tonight that just today I received a note from the chairman of the board of Nevlec, who advised me that Grenada has asked for Nevlec's assistance, and so 4 youngsters from Nevis, from Nevlec, are now headed to Grenada to assist Grenada, Carriacou and Petit Martinique resolve electricity issues that would have arisen since the passage of Hurricane Beryl. Now, on my way here, I reached out to my cousin who lives in the Virgin Islands, and I said, how did WAPA do during the storm? Bearing in mind that the Virgin Islands has a gargantuan budget compared to Little Nevis. And she said, well, some areas are still out of electricity and they had various interruptions, but they're working hard to restore it. I saw a notice that was sent to me from APUA in Antigua saying that there would be water and electricity interruption. On our sister St. Kitts, there have been water and electricity interruptions that are only now, today, being resolved. Now, I don't say these things because I'm trying to make a base comparison. I say these things to say that when the accusations were being hurled at me and my government, we knew what we were doing, and we were investing in things that would make Nevis sustainable and resilient. Those who were doing the talking, they were not investing in anything, because if they were investing in water, Keon would have had water a long time ago. If they were investing in electricity, Skelec would have been in a good position a long time ago. And I know that it is a new government in place, and that government is now 2 years old, and certainly they must take some responsibility because that is the nature of government. But problems like water and electricity do not develop overnight, and oftentimes they cannot be solved overnight. They require planning, they require execution, they require tremendous patience, but most of all they require a plan. And I always used to marvel that as I and my government were being castigated by our then Prime Minister and his chulos in Nevis for saying that we were wasting money, we were investing money in things that all of us can see and things that have made the lives of our people better. It is because Nevlec has the capacity and the manpower and the training and the investment. Why, by last night, just as the all clear was given, Nevlec put out a notice saying 99.5% of Nevis already restored. Praise be to God. It is because our water department, they talk about building better, being more sustainable in what we do, being more resilient, climate smart construction, all of this language that we hear now. We in Nevis were climate proofing our infrastructure. You see our road network done in large measure by our own people at Public Works. No damage, despite the torrential rains. Yes, you will have the occasional pothole, but the roads and the condition of the roads, you know why? Because we put into those roads the necessary engineering, the necessary construction techniques, and we have our people trained, and this government invested in the necessary equipment. Brand new paver, brand new milling machine, heavy equipment like bulldozer and backhoes. What our workers need, we have equipped them. That's where we spent money. Water, electricity, roads, water taxi. Go and take a look at it. When I was being lambasted, say I spend bad, up to now, those who had billions at their disposal from the CBI, they don't have a water taxi facility in St. Kitts. And they were chastising me when I and the cabinet were making prudent, sensible decisions for the long-term sustainability of Nevis. That is why, ladies and gentlemen, that we could respond. Yes, God has been good to us, and for that we are grateful. But you also must plan. You also must have in place the necessary infrastructure. And for many who pretending that they head hard and they can't understand, just look and see for yourself that even I believe the all clear went out around 8 o'clock. And around that time or not long thereafter is when Nevis put out their announcement. Now I see a lot of people are bashing Skelec and bashing St. Kitts. I am not here to engage in any bashing, because at the end of the day, Skelec can only work with what they have. The water department in St. Kitts can only work with what they have. My question, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, is with the billions, with a beer, billions of CBI money that flowed into St. Kitts, that every year that we were in government as Team Unity, Timothy Harris boasted about surplus after surplus after surplus. Well, how you have so much surplus and you don't got no water? How you got so much surplus and you don't buy no generators at Skelec? You have so much surplus, you did nothing at the hospital. You have so much surplus, no water taxi facility. You have so much surplus. And the roads, yes, the island main road was done, but the roads in the villages are nothing to compare. And so I believe sometimes that we need to make these points and we need to make them clear. Yes, Nevis was able to receive some monies from the Citizenship by Investment Program. I will never ever say otherwise, because to say otherwise would be untrue. And yes, I have expressed my gratitude. Some may say don't use that word, but I will use that word. You know why? Because prior to Team Unity in 2015, the people of Nevis got nothing. So, with Team Unity, and I suppose the need for CCM in order to form a government, and therefore the need for Nevis, Nevis started to get something. It was nowhere near the fair share that we had negotiated for, and that we had agreed to. 3 leaders, let us remember: Sean Richards, Vance Amory of blessed memory, and Timothy Harris, signed on the dotted line saying that on behalf of PAM, PLP, and CCM, this was the agreement. Soon as some people land in the big chair, they say, what agreement are you talk about? That not the law. Me no want hear nothing about no agreement. But the agreement gave them what they wanted. But again, those are arguments for a different time. I'm talking about Ernesto. And I want our people on both sides of the Narrows, because this show is widely listened to in St. Kitts and Nevis. Look at the state of the infrastructure. And look at what Nevis has been able to do with a pittance. I spoke to the IMF officials recently who told me that based on their analysis, the proceeds of the Citizenship by Investment program over the years, St. Kitts had kept 89% and Nevis had got 11. 89% and Nevis had got 11. When based on our census figures recently published, Nevis has somewhere, I believe, close to 28% of the population of the country. And over 1/3 of the geographic area. But we got 11%. And I was being castigated, ridiculed, odium heaped upon me and my government that we were bad spenders. Well, Ernesto reached, and Nevis got power, Nevis got water, Nevis road stand up strong like a lion, and you ask therefore the question, maybe, just maybe, you needed some bad spending in St. Kitts too. Because sometimes when you hear the rhetoric and those in Nevis who don't have one original idea, they just say, oh, teacher said this, let's say it so. Yes, teacher. What you say? That's what you say. You're going to send out the check tomorrow? Okay, teacher, we're going to say what you want to say. And we're going to try to destroy Mark Brantley and CCM. That's what we're going to try to do. Pirating everything. But look at it. Through the investment that we have made, through the investments that we continue to make as a government, with limited resources, sometimes having to choose, do I do this or do I do that? With limited resources, the people of Nevis tonight have power, they have water, the roads are clear and in good condition, great condition. And I believe Ernesto showed that the infrastructure in Nevis, notwithstanding we did not get a direct hit, and notwithstanding that we must, throughout this discussion, continue to thank God for His mercy, Ernesto showed that this government's decisions to spend on improving our infrastructure in Nevis, our water infrastructure, our electricity infrastructure, our road network and infrastructure, our drainage infrastructure, that those decisions were good decisions. They may not attract the headlines. They may not entail handing out checks and having the cameras rolling. But they're decisions that go to the heart of what sustainability in development means. And I just wanted to say that right now, because, ladies and gentlemen, I feel so proud of our men and women at Solid Waste, at Nevis, at the Nevis Water Department. I want to commend the leadership of Andrew Hendrickson at Solid Waste, the leadership of Mr. Albert Gordon at Nevis, the leadership of Mrs. Santonia Mills at the Water Department, the leadership of the Honorable Spencer Brand, who doesn't talk a lot, he's a quiet fellow, but he's doing some big things here on the island of Nevis. The leadership of Mr. Williams, Lord, they got more than one Williams, but Director Williams in Public Works, and of course Mr. Brannigan, the Minister with responsibility for works, for all that they've done with the roads. Bath Village, how's your road? Brown Hill, how's your road? Shaw's Road, how's your road? Brazier's, how's your road? Rollins, Hanley's Road. all of those roads done by this government spending badly. If there was ever a need to demonstrate, if there was ever a case to be made, if there was ever evidence that was required to show what it means to spend well, the island of Nevis, brothers and sisters, is your model. It is your model. And I challenge anyone out there listening who can call in and say, you see, sometimes it is not because we're not out there beating our chests and going on. Sometimes we take the criticisms that are leveled because, you know, I subscribe to the notion of ignoring the noise, and a lot of it is just noise. But when you have an occurrence like Ernesto, which impacted Nevis and impacted St. Kitts and impacted others in the Caribbean region, and then you start to now gauge how the infrastructure held up, and you get a sense of what I'm saying in relation to the decisions that have been made by this government to invest in the infrastructural improvements that we have seen on the island of Nevis. It is not by accident. And I want to emphasize that. It is not by accident. Some people, you see, are busy talking while others are busy doing. And oftentimes when we flick the switch or we turn on the tap, we take it for granted. Somebody sent me something just tonight and said, oh, years ago, things in terms of water and electricity in Nevis going off every minute, going off every minute. And yes, we all experience that. But that is now something of the past. And it did not happen magically. It happened because there was a plan and there was a decided action by the cabinet, by the administration to invest. That is what we decided to do, ladies and gentlemen. So I wanted to start there because I thought it an important jumping off point. Because I come week after week and I speak to our people candidly, honestly, openly. I speak to our people about the investment that has been made. And I try to make the case to our people that you have a government that is sensible, that is prudent, and that has always acted in the best interests of the people of Nevis. In every democracy there will be criticisms. I reminded someone recently that they crucified Jesus, who was perfect and sent by God to save us. And yet, when Pontius Pilate gave the mob the opportunity to save Jesus or save the criminal Barabbas, they say, save Barabbas. And they sent a pure man, God's son, to die on the cross. Crucified him who was without sin. So I expect, having been born into sin, that I will get my share of crucifixion. Because if they could kill a man who was without sin, well, Lord, what would they do to me? So in a democracy, especially in one as raucous and robust as ours, we expect that we will hear different voices. And nothing is wrong with that. But our people have to look fairly at development. They have to appreciate and understand that development does not happen overnight. That development takes time, especially for small islands like ours with severely limited resources in terms of our financial commitments. So many people have called me since these rains to say they need a road, they need their road done. This has to be done, that has to be done. And I have sought to acknowledge all who have reached out and to say to them, please be patient with us. We simply do not have the capacity to do all the things that need to be done at once. And yes, we understand that for some, they say the pace is too slow. But on a night like tonight, just about 24 hours or so after the passage of Ernesto, with all the rain and wind, I can truly say that if we are fair, we will admit that the infrastructure in Nevis stood up well, and that our personnel responded in Herculean fashion to the challenges that were posed by Ernesto. I made inquiries. I said, what of the Bath stream and the improvements we have just made? And I was told, well, you know, the gut runs into the stream, so whenever that happens, the stream will get a bit dirty, but we have the people there, and we have given them the tools that they will sort it out in short order. I asked, so what about all that we have done there in terms of the works? And I love the answer that came back. The answer that came back said, we designed it well, so the water drained off. And so whatever we experienced was minor, because we designed it well. You see, it comes back to what I'm saying. Not just doing a project because you could do a project. Doing projects, one, which are necessary, two, which will add value, but three, doing them in a way that they are done correctly. And I go back to a central theme throughout my time as Premier of Nevis. A theme that has informed my thinking and our decision making, that the people of Nevis must be put front and center in terms of our development. Our development is their development, and their development is our development. We cannot move Nevis forward without having our people on board. And I say that and will continue to say that, because all of these projects that you see, the manifestation of them on the ground, the road infrastructure, the water infrastructure, electricity infrastructure, water taxi infrastructure, housing infrastructure, right here at the hot bath, they have one thing in common, and that is the government decided that the people of Nevis were competent enough to do the work, that Nevisian engineers and architects, carpenters and masons, contractors, plumbers, electricians, landscape architects, designers, that all of them must, and hear the language that I'm using, must be given an opportunity in this their born in land. It was not always so. And we had someone no less than a Premier of Nevis in a former dispensation say to our young people, when I come back from school, I don't know how you're doing. When we complained that all the big projects were being given to a foreign company, his response on behalf of the NRP government that he led was, I give them a little road in brown pasture. Let them go up, they go practice, learn how to drive. That was how low they felt about our own people. We said to the contrary, no, Nevisians are as good as any and better than most. Give a Nevisian engineer the chance. Give a Nevisian architect the chance. Give them fellas in public works a chance, and they will perform. Let me tell you something. You see all the work that was done there at the cultural complex and the cultural village? Man, people from far and wide are praising what they saw. That we've created a plug and play. Any big artist could come to Nevis right now. And those venues are available. Just plug up and you're ready to go. You know who the architect was? A young architect just come back here, and Mr. Pemberton. The engineer, a young engineer just come back, Mr. Dyer. All the builders, I think it was just over 12 of them, local. Plumber, local. Plumbers, sorry, local. Electricians, local. You cannot, ladies and gentlemen, get to that point, and you cannot get to sustainable development without having confidence in your people, without giving them the chance and saying to them, go and build that, go and create that. They may not get it right the first time. That is true. But we will only know if we have the confidence in our people to give them an opportunity to try. And that, you see, has been the hallmark of this CCM-led administration. We say we have confidence in our people. We went out, we bought a brand new paver. We bought a brand new milling machine. We exposed our guys to training. We brought people in to provide training up there at the asphalt plant. We invested in improvements at the asphalt plant. And I'm going to share something with you now, because do you know that our fellas, the same ones that a former premier say go practice because they're not good enough to do projects, as justification for giving all of the projects to a firm from overseas, those fellas are now being called upon. Danny Williams was just in Barbuda, I think he went. You know what they call him to do? Train people. Let me say that again. Danny Williams was just in Barbuda. They call him to train people. Right now, we are putting the finishing touches on a group of those guys who will be going off to provide assistance to build out road infrastructure outside of Nevis. And they did not call anybody. The people called them. That's what you get, ladies and gentlemen, when you put your people first and you give your people an opportunity in their own country. Nevis was the only place I know where the government was telling people, born here, naval stringberry here, that despite their qualifications, despite their studying engineering at St. Augustine and wherever else they went, that they must go sit down in the back of the bus because we can't trust them with the development of Nevis. We got into office and we say that has to change. And praise be to God, we see the benefits, we see the transformation, we see others now calling on Nevisians to help them. When an NRP-led administration was telling Nevisians, I must sit down in the back of the bus, I am not ready yet, I am not able, I must go practice, learn how to drive, because when I come home from university, I don't know what you're doing. That's what we were told. And I say these things, and sometimes people say, man, you said that before. And that is true. But it is useful to continually remind our people of where we were and where we are now. And to explain to our people that we not get to where we are now by accident. we got to where we are now because there has been a deliberate policy to empower our people. A deliberate policy to empower our people and give them an opportunity in this, the land of their birth. That when you come as an engineer, you come as an architect, you come as a plumber, you come as an electrician. Well, if you can't get work here in Nevis, if you can't be given a job in Nevis, if you're being told that you must go on a little side road up in Brown Pasture, go practice, well, what does that say to you? When the same Trinidadian fellow you sat down next to in your class at St. Augustine, you come out of UA with the same engineering degree as he come down here in the boots, and he is running a project in Nevis because the government in Nevis said to you, who have the same degree, you're not able, you're not competent. You can't do that to our people. And if one thing and one thing alone is said of me as Premier of Nevis, I want it to be said that my government put the people of Nevis at the center of our development. When we do roads, we use our people. Put up buildings, we use our people. Housing, we use our people. I have coined the phrase that we're building Nevis by us and for us. And it's an important philosophy. We're building Nevis by us and for us. And we're investing and giving our people an opportunity. You know, many fellas here now own backhoe and truck and all kinds of things. Why you think they could own them? Let me tell you why. Because under the CCM-led government, we decided that type of business, for government projects, we will ensure that our local fellas could get a bite. And so many people went into that business because the government took a policy decision that we will support those local businesses and local businessmen. Ask them, don't ask me. Ask them. And if they are fair, I am sure that they will tell you that a significant part of them getting a start, getting their feet under them, was government projects. Those same fellas used to sit down and kick stone while trucks that were foreign owned were driving up and down, that were only brought to the island to do the big projects and then left. And they were sitting down watching them up and down the road. Backhoe truck, excavator, paver, milling machine, you name it. That does not happen anymore because this government has taken a view that we will empower our people. You know how important that is? And many may not see the importance of it now. Many have their little grievance and grouse, and so I appreciate that. But I'm hopeful that with the benefit of time, that when we look back over this period, we will see that what we were doing as a government was investing in the development of our human capital here on the island of Nevis. When we put plans in place, we go to Taiwan, we say to Taiwan as our friend and partner, could we have $5 million in the heart of the COVID pandemic so that we can offer microloans to women and to youth so that they can start their own business or expand an existing business? That is out of the box thinking, you know. And that money was originally available to them at 4%, I think it was. I'm told now that through renewed engagement with the Taiwanese, the interest rate has been reduced to 3%. And we said you could borrow up to a maximum of 100,000 EC dollars. And the reason we say borrow, because we want you to pay back so that we could have the money as a revolving fund. And we say a maximum of $100,000 because the idea is to provide seed money. This is not for big businesses. This is for the small person who has a business idea. May not be bankable, meaning that no bank is going to lend them. But they go to CIDU, they have that business plan, CIDU assists them and makes some money available to them, and bingo, they have a small business. That is what you call investing in your people. That is what you call developing your human capital. I hope that my narrative is sufficient for our people to understand how the strands interconnect, because we are weaving a tapestry for this island, a tapestry of development and sustainability. And you can't develop one part and forget the other. You can't just put down concrete and forget your people. You can't just invest in water and forget your people. You can't invest just in electricity and forget your people. Your people must be the center of what you're doing. You know how many scores of students have benefited from financial assistance from this government to pursue studies? In fact, we met a policy that said if you were studying online, you could not get financial assistance. And we changed that policy, because we said whether you're studying online or you're going overseas, once you are studying an area that we have deemed to be one of the critical areas for the development of the island, we will provide some support. And we spread that support as wide as we can manage. Again, investing in our human capital. Because no country, ladies and gentlemen, can develop without its people. I don't care how much concrete you put down, how much building you put up. No country can develop without its people. And so, to engage and to ensure sustainability, we have also to ensure that we have our people on board. And I've given you tonight a number of examples so that you could understand that what you're seeing here is a government working to its plan of development. Infrastructure, people, the economy, agriculture, tourism, the various elements coming together, working together to create that sweet symphony of development. And that, I believe, is the island of Nevis. My dream is that one day people will come from far and wide to look at this little island, and they will say that the seeds that we are sowing now have borne spectacular fruit. Because what we're doing now isn't just for us, you know. What we're doing now is also for those who are to come. It's for the little boy and girl who's currently in primary school or in preschool. It is for those that are now going through high school and trying to decide what they're going to do with themselves. I want them to know that Nevis belongs to them, and that there are opportunities right on this little island that we want them to be front and center in exploiting. It cannot and will not happen overnight. But once you continue to have steady, steadfast, sensible leadership, we can achieve this together. See our tagline now: growing Nevis together. Growing Nevis together. Because we recognize that we need all of us together to grow the island. All of us investing our ideas, our energy, our money, our time, our love, our patriotism to bring us to where we need to go. I believe that we are making progress, and that if we continue on this path, that we will emerge as a shining beacon on the hill, of a sustainable island and sustainable development for all to see and to copy. Ladies and gentlemen, it is about 8 minutes or so to the hour of 9 o'clock. I have engaged on a rather lengthy soliloquy this evening, and so I'm now going to open the lines for those who may wish to be a part of this show. The numbers are 869-469-1616 and 869-469-1700. Now, let me say this. Someone called and complained that I was sometimes off the screen. That is only when we have a call, and that also allows me an opportunity to check my phones, because sometimes persons are sending me messages of things that they would want to discuss. Not everybody wants to call in, and I appreciate that. But for those who want to call, 869-469-1616, 869-469-1700. And we have our first caller. Let's go to the line. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Michelle, good night.
How are you, my dear?
You're doing well, sir.
Yes, indeed.
1 Peter chapter 2, verse 17, 18, and 19. Honor all men, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the king. Servants, be subjected to your master with all fear, not only to the good and gentle, but also to the forward. For this stands worthy if a man for conscience towards God endure grief, suffering, and wrongfully. Have a good evening. May God continue to bless you, bless everybody, and good night. Bye.
Thank you very much, my dear, and thank you for your usual message. Thank you for your usual call. I really appreciate it, and your scripture, always a scripture of your choosing, and you have been with this show for as long as I can recall. I believe you might have been with us from the beginning, and so I thank you for staying the course, and I trust and hope that the storms did not do you too much damage, and that all is well with you and the family. Ladies and gentlemen, we're taking your calls. 869-469-1616 and 869-469-1700. Those are the numbers to call if you'd like to be a part of this show this evening. Now, while I'm waiting for the phones to call, I will continue by indicating to the general public that we actually are having quite an incredible event that's happening here. I'm trying to just get it from my device so that I give you accurate information. But we are having a very major conference happening on the island of Nevis. And that conference is an archaeological conference. Yes, the 30th Congress of the International Association for Caribbean Archaeology. And they are meeting over the period 15th to 17th August right here in Nevis. They are principally meeting at NEPAC and at the Malcolm Guichard Recreational Park. And I'm advised that they anticipate that they'll have well over 200 participants. Now, what is good to know is that it is free to residents of St. Kitts and Nevis. And so if you are interested in archaeology, you can register for free, and they say that you can register at the event, because I gather that the online registration is now closed. But I think it has been a major coup for the island of Nevis to get this Caribbean Archaeological Conference. And, ladies and gentlemen, it goes back to what I was saying about development. NEPAC was built by the previous government, but we were forced to close NEPAC and to engage in substantial renovations there, for which we were criticized, but we did it anyway. Now look, NEPAC was just reopened a couple of weeks ago in time for Culturama, and we already have a significant international conference happening right there at NEPAC. You invest because you have a plan, and that plan leads to the results that you want. So when those people come, they're going to stay at hotels, you know. When they come, they may rent cars, you know. And if they're not renting cars, they're going to use our buses and our transport system, our taxis. They're going to eat at the restaurants. That is economic activity, again, coming on the heels of C50. And as I mentioned C50, I had an interesting conversation with a young person. The young person said to me that in their view, the Culturama committee did not make enough money during C50, and that Culturama is being run at a loss. And I took the time to share with this youngster that the purpose of Culturama is really initially a public good. It is to preserve our cultural heritage. Beyond that, Culturama provides a significant economic boost to the island of Nevis. And I have been going around in my own quiet way, engaging with different business people. You know how good it made me feel to hear guest house operators say they were completely full. To hear hoteliers say they were completely full. To hear one restaurateur tell me that if anybody said they don't make money in Nevis over the Culturama and homecoming, tell them she say they lie. When I spoke to a restaurateur down on Pinny's Beach, he indicated that his staff were burnt out because they got no rest during the season. How busy they were. When I heard that car rental agencies ran out of cars, and so cars were being brought from St. Kitts to be rented over here. When I learned that you had a large group from Bermuda, the Goombe dancers, who came in to participate in Culturama but had to stay at the Marriott in St. Kitts. When I look at the water taxi traffic back and forth, I look at the traffic on the Sea Bridge and I-Connect with the vehicles back and forth. I look at the traffic through Charlestown back and forth. What we see is that our investment and our idea of ensuring that we had a particular type of Culturama 50, and when we came up with the idea to say, Nevisians, come home, have your family reunions, come together and let us have a grand homecoming celebration, I feel so proud of Nevisians, how they responded. My goodness, they come, they bring granddaughter, great granddaughter, they bring boyfriend, they bring girlfriend, they bring wife and husband, they bring in-laws, they bring everybody. As somebody said to me, if Nevis no sink this time, it can't sink again. People everywhere you look was people. On the night of the Calypso show, I sent a drone shot out on social media, and a friend called me and said they are amazed at how many people were at the cultural complex for Kaiso night, because they were down at Pinny's and Pinny's was full. All the restaurants down there full. Again, development that's thoughtful, that's planned, that's sustainable. I keep coming back to that word. Pinny's was not just some slapdash, do anything, throw it together. Pinny's was a plan. The vision was the late great Malcolm Gishard. But we had to go out, we had to design it. We were initially engaged with Mrs. Ann Bass of blessed memory. And we had one design, you remember, with a pool and Olympic-sized pool. All that was in that design. But after she pulled out of the project, we decided that we would not despair. We went back to the table and we approached our friends in Taiwan. We came up with a new design. And no less a person than the then president of Taiwan journeyed to Nevis to turn the sod on the start of that project. And look at it now. Look at it now. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Paternal love and greetings to you, Brother Premier.
Yes, good evening.
And how you there is going on the night falling for?
We're doing well so far, thank you.
Give thanks to the Almighty love. And good night to your listener by radio and internet and One Radio on the Mark. Now, Brother Premier, I just like to ask a question. I heard you make reference about function will be taking place pursuing an archaeologist meeting, a conference.
Yes.
And what the schedule date is from the 14th till when?
Let me grab my phone again. Just bear with me. It is the 15th of August, 15th, 16th, and 17th. They had to do some rescheduling because of the storm yesterday.
So the rescheduling is still the same time of the date, or you have
15th, 16th, and 17th. Those are the days that they're having the conference.
So the 17th fall on the day when Marcus Garvey Earthlight is 10.
Okay, well, I don't know that, but if you say so, then I accept it.
Well, it's so because it's factor, but this time. Now, then, I'm looking on the indication. What will be the indication, the drive out of this?
I'm not hearing you properly, caller. Could you speak a bit louder for me, please?
What will be the drive out of this conference coming to the shores of Nevis, and what the emphasis will it bring in the development towards, as your statement was, you line on the...
Well, it's a conference. It's the 30th Congress of the International Association for Caribbean Archaeology. They're having their congress here on Nevis. They have keynote speakers, George Okela Abungu from Kenya, Kevin Farmer from Barbados. They have various sessions. And I'm just looking here, the archaeology and heritage of Nevis and St. Kitts. All of this is being discussed. And for me, what is also useful, the knowledge of course is critical, but what is also useful is the fact that hundreds of people will be here in Nevis, staying at our hotels, eating at our restaurants, and adding value.
Well, thankful for hearing that emphasis of how you're looking for it to be. I'd like to say in the state of we need to have our young ones apply in this aspect, so we don't have to have this kind of information coming and just going left for our people. You hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you quite clearly.
So I'm like to advise you as your capacity as the Premier that even though it's in the summertime and school is not on, that we are implying that youth take the initiative, because it's our studies we have to rely within enhancing our story, as they call it, history. So these are the emphasis right now in the open year. I hope that you all take the chance. If I get there, I only look at this Saturday because on difficulties at the ends of the short things I have to deal with. So within, I guide and protect the moments going forward, and seeing that our people rely wisely of the high story of our people, how we have the path in this Western Hemisphere. So guide you safely with this conference over on the shores of Nevis.
Alright, thank you very much for your call. And the reason why I check my phone is because someone just sent me a correction. I said the Gumbe dancers from Bermuda stayed at the Marriott, and somebody said no, they stayed at the Sugar Bay Club. So I forgive me for that error. But we know that they stayed on St. Kitts, notwithstanding that they came for the event on Nevis, because Nevis was full. It was like the story in the Bible where the inn was full. Well, the inn was full. And that is, I think, the point I was seeking to make, is to point out that the spin-offs from Culturama, and remember, Culturama came on the heels of the Mango Festival. Let's go back to the phones and take some more calls. Good evening, you're on the mark. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Good night, Mr. Mark.
Good night.
With all due respect, when Unity was in office, you said that was the best treatment you got from Unity Construct.
Yes.
So now my question to you, under the Labour administration now in there for 2 years, you still stand that the best treatment Nevis got was under the Unity Construct?
The treatment that we have had in relation to Labour, in my humble opinion, has been better. I say that because Dr. Drew has extended the same courtesies that had been extended to Nevis under Team Unity, and he has gone further.
Okay.
So in my view, I am not yet at a point where I can say that we have ironed out this issue of fair share, but Dr. Drew has extended all that Unity gave and has gone further.
Okay, thank you for your honesty.
You're most welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, the numbers to call are 869-469-1616 and 1700. Let's go back to the telephones. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Good evening, Mr. Premier.
Good evening, good evening. How are you doing?
I am doing pretty alright, and how are you doing, sir?
I'm good, man. Good to hear you. I'm happy.
Yes,
I hope you're well. I hope you're well rested now.
I'm trying my best. I'm recovering from the flu as well.
Oh dear, oh dear.
You know the flu has been going rampant here on the island of Nevis as well. But I just wanted to touch on a point that you would have made earlier, and just to elaborate a bit on the point, because I don't think people understand fully the economic impact that Culturama had on the island of Nevis. And not only Nevis, Premier, but also on St. Kitts. There were millions of dollars that turned around in the economy of both St. Kitts and Nevis as a result of the Culturama 50 and Homecoming. You touched on the water taxis, of course. All of the ferries did fantastic business. Those that operated at the Wally Water Taxi Facility, those that operated in Charlestown. You touched on the iConnect, of course the Sea Bridge as well. And we must remember that the majority of the persons who came to Nevis for Culturama and Homecoming came through the airport in St. Kitts. And so the taxi operators on St. Kitts would have done a lot of business. And so when we look at the taxi service, when we look at the car rental business, when we look at the boats, the ferries, we also have to look at the gas stations, because they all needed fuel. The taxis needed fuel, the car rentals needed fuel, the boats needed fuel, and so the gas stations would have made a lot of money from the fuel. When we look at the hotels, the restaurants, the guest houses, and of course some persons would have stayed at two persons' homes as well. When we talk about the money that would have turned around in that particular sector, so many persons were here. You touched on persons being at the restaurants. All of the restaurants would have done well. And of course, with all the persons, with the thousands of persons who would have come home, Honorable Premier, they would have had to go to the supermarkets very often. And so the supermarkets would have done exceptionally well too. And of course, once the hotels and the restaurants are doing well, the farmers and the fishermen are also doing well.
Yes.
The small businesses are also doing well. The tour operators are also doing well. And so the vendors, you can't forget the vendors, Mr. Premier, because when we look at the food fair, the biggest in the history of the festival, the vendors, as I keep saying, I believe the vendors are still smiling. When we look at the vendors at the cultural complex, the crowds that were there on every night that an event was hosted at the cultural complex, on every night that an event was hosted at the cultural village, And when we look at the crowds that were there, the vendors would have done exceptionally well. All of the bars and restaurants and Nevis would have done well. And so, in essence, every aspect of any business on the island of Nevis would have benefited from the influx of persons who descended on the shores of Nevis for Culturama 50 and Homecoming. And as I said, this economic impact has been felt not only on Nevis, but it has been felt significantly on St. Kitts as well. And so this was a massive boost for the economy in the entire federation. And we cannot underestimate what would have happened here in St. Kitts and Nevis for Culturama 50 and Homecoming Honorable Premier. So we need to drive the point home that even though the Culturama Committee and the government may not have made a lot of money from the Culturama per se, the fact is the government and the Culturama Committee facilitated many other persons, many other businesses to make a mint out of the festival that has just been completed. And I personally believe, and I believe it is a fact, that of all the 50 Culturama events that have gone, this year, undoubtedly, the most money would have turned around in the economy of both St. Kitts and Nevis for any Culturama event ever. I don't know if you'll agree with me, Premier.
Eric, I agree with you totally. We still will need to do the economic impact assessment. But you made a point that I think I did not make. And I'm happy that you highlighted it, because sometimes we miss that point. That Culturama actually brought economic benefits to St. Kitts as well.
Of course.
I'm happy you made that point, because of the thousands that came home. Listen, I spoke to a lady who came in, and she said that her entire flight was going to Nevis that landed at RLB. She said everybody on the plane was going to Nevis for Culturama, right?
Right.
And you got to think about the money that Scasper would have made.
Precisely.
The departure taxes that would have been paid.
Precisely.
The taxi operators, as you say.
Precisely.
Many who are here also spent time in St. Kitts.
Yes.
I just talked about the Gumbe dancers who came from Bermuda. Large group, they stayed at Sugar Bay Club in St. Kitts, even though they came for Culturama, and they were not alone.
The train ride.
Man, everything. So we have to see it for the value that it brought to the entire country. And I'm happy you made that point, because that really was a point that I did not make, but which is an important point.
Very important,
to make,
because Premier, all those persons who landed at RLB, they had to take a taxi either to Reggae Beach or to Bastia. And for the taxi operators from the RLB to Bastia were making money, and the taxi operators from RLB to Reggae Beach were making money. The taxi operators, when they were going back from Reggae Beach back to the RLB, and of course when they got back to Bastia, from Bastia back to the RLB. And so it's a spin-off effect.
No, listen, Eric, I think that you made that point eloquently, and it is a point that I'm grateful that you raised, because you are absolutely spot on. And those are the benefits. People going back and forth, people engaging, and as I say, we can't just judge it in terms of gate receipts. We have to look at Culturama in terms of the overall impact on the economy.
Indeed.
And the government hopes that we'll be able to collect through taxes based on that increased consumption that we would have seen.
Indeed.
So, I am entirely pleased with what I've seen. Last week I said that the best news of everything that we have said is that it was incident and accident free.
Amen.
And that, I think, speaks volumes as well, because with thousands of people here, that we didn't have anything that marred our festival. I'm very grateful for that.
Yes, and we have to give thanks to our security forces, and of course we want to say thanks to the health services who were very much on standby as well, but thank God they didn't have too much work to do for the Culturama 50, but we have to say a big thank you to them for the excellent work that they would have done.
Okay, thank you, my brother. Thank you very much for that. That was the Honorable Eric Evelyn, our Deputy Premier, but perhaps more importantly, our Minister with responsibility for culture And it was under his auspices and with his hard work, working with his team, that we would have produced an historic Culturama 50 and Nevis homecoming celebration. I think that by any measure, even the worst critics would admit that it was a resounding success in terms of the cultural preservation and seeing our culture at work, but also in terms of the spin-offs. And I think that's what he called. And he made the very valuable point that the good people in St. Kitts would also have benefited, the businesses in St. Kitts would also have benefited from the influx of people brought here because we had an idea that we put into motion and that our people responded to positively. Let's go back to the phones. We have about 40 minutes left. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Oh, good evening, Mark. I want to congratulate you on the Culturama, the recent Culturama.
Thank you very much.
50. Everybody's talking about it.
Thank you very, very much.
Even here in Europe, you know, everybody's so impressed with what you all have done there.
Well, I'm delighted to hear that. Thank you.
But there is a bone that I'd like to pick with you,
Sure.
if you have time. It's about you've been talking quite a lot about people coming back from the diaspora to Nevis to live because you have a reduction in your population. You with me?
I'm listening to you. We don't actually have a reduction. We have an increase. But the argument that I've made is that the increase is not sufficient.
It's not sufficient. Okay, I'm very sorry. Anyway, so you're interested in people to come home, and a lot of people here in Europe would like to come home, but we would like to know about the concessions. What will be the benefits of us coming home? Because we have a lot of benefits here in Europe, you know.
So I hear you and I understand. And I did say, I penned an open letter, and I did say that we will shortly be announcing a package of concessions because we recognize that we have to give some careful thought to what it is we can offer and what might prove attractive to our people to come home. The value of the homecoming celebration that we had was that I think it allowed Nevisians and the children of Nevisians to see Nevis in a new way and in a new light.
Right.
Many people, when they left Nevis, 70s, 80s, 90s, they left because of the difficult economic circumstances that were here. They left an island which had very little in terms of development, and so they went abroad in their numbers to make a better life.
Yeah.
I have said that Nevis is no more. That the Nevis today is a modern Nevis. It is developing in a sustainable way. We have now great electricity, better water, better roads, better housing, better infrastructure generally, better transportation links. We're about to embark on the airport development. These are things that the island has been doing in a very systematic way. We have better internet, broadband, connectivity. So we feel that it is time that Nevisians and their children, whether those in the Virgin Islands, in the Caribbean, those in the US, UK, or in Europe, that they take another look. And we have emphasized, caller, that it's not just about physically relocating. We're also talking about taking a look in terms of investing, taking a look in terms of saying, well, how can I help? I have been out here in Belgium, I've been out here in Switzerland for 40 years. What can I do now to give back something to the land of my birth? So we are trying to rekindle that love and that connection with Nevis, because a lot of people, and I spoke to so many of them when they were here, had not been to Nevis in 10 years or more. They you know, everybody, and you know how that is. You live in your life wherever you are, and you get caught up. You're going to work, you're doing what you need to do, you're raising your family, you're paying your taxes, you know. You have everyday life, and so the years slip by. And so a lot of people, when they came and they saw, they were impressed. And so we're trying to rekindle that bond so that Nevis is no longer just a sentimental walk down memory lane. that
Right.
we don't just say, boy, I used to drink coconuts down at Penny's in the 1970s. We want you to have a sense and a presence and an understanding and an appreciation and a love for Nevis going forward. So that's what we're trying to do. In terms of the package, we are working on it. I've asked for some assistance.
I wanted to point out one thing is that there would be different types of people coming home. So I am hoping that there would be something special for the ones that are in my in my group who are pensioners, you know.
Yes.
So I hope that you all could look at it in a broad perspective that will accommodate, you know, different attitudes and different people, different types of people.
Well, at the end of the day, the commonalities that they envision. And so while I understand what you're saying, and we will try our very best, we are trying to get our people to fall in love again with this island of their birth.
Sure, certainly. I want to thank you for having this conversation with me, and have a pleasant night, sir.
Thank you very much. You mind me asking where you're calling from?
I'm calling from Sweden.
Sweden. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, say good night to
and I have a friend in Finland. He sometimes calls. We listen to you throughout the Scandinavia.
Oh man, thanks a million. I want you to say something to us in Swedish. Say good night to the people of Sigis and Nevis.
Godnatt.
Godnatt. All right, sir. Thank you very much. All right, you see, we learned something there. That's a call all the way from Sweden. Godnatt. That's good night, he says. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Thank you very much, caller, for that. We have about 35 minutes left, and we're taking your calls. 869-469-1616. 869-469-1700. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have been sent a note, so let me just, my dear friend Agnola from Agnola Productions, she's indicating that she's having a production, and let me just give you the information. Agnola Productions and the Church of God Eden Brown Theatre Company, they're presenting Identity Expo, a youth drama you cannot afford to miss. Come support our youths for this inspiring production. Date Sunday, August 25th. Where? NIPAC. Time 5 p.m. Please contact 662-8577. Adults are $25, children $15. Tickets are available at Trendy Feet, Divinity Touch, and Pemberton's on Main Street, Charlestown. So this is Identity Expo, a production being put on by Agnola Production and Church of God Eden Brown Theatre Company at NIPAC on Sunday, August 25th at 5 p.m. Call 662-8577 for more information. Adults $25, children $15. Tickets are available at Trendy Feet, Divinity Touch, and Pemberton's on Main Street. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Yes, good evening, my premier.
Good evening.
What's up, man?
I'm good. Hey, how you doing?
Hey, it was a pleasure, man, to meet you, and we had a coming down from Bro Hill Gap, man.
Long jam.
Yeah, long jam, we do a long jam. But let me tell you something. I'm glad I come home, which I don't come home that often, but why experience, and I walk from Brown Hill, come out a big path. Listen, some of these people need to keep their mouth shut and eat olives. You know why? Brown Hill was improved, why see, the last 10 years, why see. Man, like I need to come back home now.
But you know,
Once I see, huh?
You know, you're always here.
Yeah, but I don't come. I was here I was there 21, 22 for the voting, but I just come back again. But it was so excited to see walk from Brown Hill and come out and watch all around. Especially I want to talk about a little bit is down going on Bridgegut Hill. When I realized I want to where the beach is. When I realized you make a walkway, you just that down to nothing, and the wall, the stonework still there.
But the
White man too. Huh?
Yeah, go ahead, caller. Sorry.
And by Mr. White man on the hill there, he wall drop and his stonework still there. But listen, now, you do a wonderful job. any time you're in office and who wants to bother, let it continue. You have done a lot for Nevis.
But caller, you're from Brownhill. You remember how Brownhill Road used to look?
Let me tell you, Miss Vern out of Brownhill.
Well, we know that. So I'm asking you if you remember how Brownhill Road used to look.
Yes, I was home. I just was down in 26 years. So I know, and I tell you a lot, especially going up by Sandy, them from Brownhill. Me realize even by the church, why custom to go to war. So one talk, let it continue talk. But you know, them always say, they don't see nothing but things I do, but they don't see. So that's the problem. So let us talk salt with that. And you continue do what you're doing, and just big up everybody in Brownhill, especially Nutsy. Nutsy was my boy. And big up to yourself and just keep your head high, Mr. Brantley. He's my premier for life.
Thank you, my brother.
Yes, and all the best, man, and continue to do what you do. So who wants vex, let it dead. Simple as that. Who don't like it, suck salt.
All right, my brother. Well, thanks for the call. How's the weather where you are?
Boy, let me tell you something. Last night, you know, we had some weather down here, and then Wappa went from since 9 o'clock. We get back about, say, 3 o'clock this afternoon, my son.
Okay. But you have electricity and water back?
Everybody get back, you know, not 100%, but 80% don't get back Wappa.
Okay. All right. But no damage and thing in the Virgin Islands.
Pleasure, man. You have to hug from the boy Harold, boy Hartford, and do a little start jump. So it was nice.
All right. Okay. Take care of it.
My premier.
Yeah, man. Good hearing you.
Do what you do.
All right. Thanks, brother. All right. Well, happy to hear there from the Virgin Islands. That's a caller from the U.S. Virgin Islands. He said that they were out. Wappa went out after 9 last night. They got it back after 3 this afternoon. So it again reinforces the point that I was making, because by the time the all clear came for Nevis last night, the power was back on. So I just want to again thank the talented team at Nevlec, from the manager and the board, go all the way down to the men on the line. They have done a wonderful job. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark. Caller? Hello? Caller, apologies, you're getting a kind of static there. Could you please try and call back in? The number again is 469-1616 and 469-1700. Those are the numbers if you want to be a part of the show this evening. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is now 9:30, and it's a matter that I wanted to touch on, because in all the good news, we have had a tragic situation of another youngster losing his life to violence. Let me take this call and then I'll come back to that. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Good night, Premier Brantley.
How are you? It's good to hear your voice.
Yes, I'm fine, thank you.
Fantastic.
To God be the glory, great things He have done. No complaint.
Amen.
Okay, I'm going to read from, I'm just reading the 2 verses of Psalm 117. Oh, praise the Lord, all ye nations. Praise Him, all ye people. For His merciful kindness is great toward us, and the truth of the Lord endureth forever. Praise ye the Lord. May God add the richest blessing to the reading of His word. Good night.
Thank you, good night, and amen. Thank you for your scripture. Truly appreciate it. I was saying before this call that we had yet again another tragedy of a youngster killed on the island of Nevis. And I feel now, as Premier of Nevis, that I have given far too many speeches, and I have had to spend far too much time dealing with this particular issue. We're in a sink, it's in Nevis now, ladies and gentlemen, that despite the naysayers, I believe that we offer the most opportunity that has ever been offered in the history of our country. Our young people now have opportunities for training, for study abroad, for jobs. They have opportunities to start small businesses and to engage in activity that is beneficial and that builds them and builds their country. They have the opportunity to help their poor mother or father band together to build a house. We are providing housing, we are providing lands, we are providing all kinds of opportunities. And when I look at the number of persons who have been able to get a home, who now have their own keys and their own title, and I look at the influx of non-nationals who are coming to take advantage of the opportunities that exist here, I cannot join with those who argue that people are committing crime because there are no opportunities. I think people are committing crime for the simple reason that they are criminals. It may sound trite for me to put it that way, but I believe that people are committing crime because they are criminals, and that no matter the number of opportunities that exist in the country, they choose to go down a path of destruction. And on that path, they're being actively aided and abetted by parents who are complicit, by friends who are complicit, by girlfriends and boyfriends that are complicit. And we have a society that continues, it appears, to have a high tolerance for this type of behavior. We condemn it when it is other people, but when it is our son, we have no right to give, and we defend them till the bitter end. But when something then happens to them, we cry, we bawl, we want to throw ourselves into the grave as the casket is being lowered. And I sometimes reflect, if only you had put that much effort into turning them away from the path that they are on, the entire society might have been better. I have seen the efforts to blame the government, blame the Prime Minister, blame the Ministry of National Security, blame the police, and we lay blame. We're very good at blaming people. But I have, with my age now, believe that I have a bit more wisdom, and I have seen a lot. And I make the argument that the criminals are from us. They're not some aliens from outer space who land in our country. They went to school here. Preschool, primary school, high school. They live in our communities. They walk amongst us. Their parents work with us. They went to Sunday school, some of them. They are of us. They are us. We are their cousins and brothers and sisters, their parents, their girlfriend and boyfriend, their classmate, their teacher. And if my argument is correct, it means that none of us is absolved of responsibility. And all of us must shoulder that responsibility, that we have raised up in our midst some monsters. And I know that there are people out there who have all the excuses in the world. Oh, they grew up without a father. Oh, there was no man in the house. Oh, this, oh, that, oh, the other. But for me, I believe that if you know the difference between right and wrong, it means therefore that you have a choice that you can make. And if you consistently choose to do what is wrong, and consistently go out to hurt people, to rob and kill. They not tell me nothing about you grew up in a house without a father. Because a lot of us grew up in a house without a father. But we were taught right and wrong. The do's and the don'ts. The good and the bad. And all of us know the difference between right and wrong. And so, I want us tonight to take a close look at ourselves. Not just the Prime Minister and the Premier and the politician, but to take a look at ourselves. What are we doing or not doing so that we have reached to this point in our society? Let me go to the phones and take this. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
I'm glad to hear that they had a successful Culturama and the economic turnover was good. But I wanted to engage on this topic here for quite a while because I've comprehensively studied this topic. And the psychologist said, if a child sees that's 18,000 murders between 1 and 10, is likely to turn to murders. None of y'all speak about the bombardment of the youth, violence through television. In America, they ban that. In some states, violence through the music. Nobody talking about that. We're not talking about the poor quality of food that the nutrition that is happening. Everything you must blame the parents and the youth. It's a society failure. It was not the parents who led the people who were with the yacht for the gun and they even lock up none of them and take away the gun. It was the government and politicians. You go back 2006, 2005, a yacht with American and a French personnel with guns, and we didn't take one from them and you ask them who they distribute the guns and send it from. But we want to kill the parents and youth them today. That is hypocrisy. Blatant hypocrisy that we're going to punish the youth them who need. At the end, and we're going to let the gun runners one free.
Let me ask you something, caller.
We charge you $13,000 for entering the port wrongly. $13,000 in London. How much arms the bishop on the price?
Caller, can I ask you something?
Yeah.
So, assume all that you're saying is correct.
Not assume. You could go and check it.
No.
You don't want to give me a show.
Caller, listen to me. I'm not arguing. I am saying, let us accept then, if you prefer that language, that all that you say is correct. Does that excuse the behavior of a young man or young woman taking up a gun and going and killing his or her brother or sister?
My brother, I'm totally against that. I turned in 2 submachine guns which I found in the hills in 1986. 2 submachine guns from the army.
So
turning in. You never hear me get any water or any praise from any government.
So caller.
Two submachine
guns. Hold on, caller. So if you condemn it, then let us accept all that you're saying as correct. My point is still a valid point that we must hold people accountable, because hold on. Let me make my point and then you speak.
Yeah.
You know and I know that there's something named right and there's something named wrong.
Of course.
And you know and I know that each of us can find justification for doing wrong if we want to find it.
Me? I don't want to find it.
Well, I'm just saying that people can find justification.
Yes.
I asked the youngster one time, why you beefing with these youngsters from this area? You know, he tell me, them man dissed him when they were in high school.
But Mr. Brantley, we could run from the fact that the television is bombarding you with violence.
But listen, so because the television bombarding you with violence, you lose the sense of what is right and wrong?
Okay, yes.
You do?
Yes, because that's the only way you'll know how to solve problem. It is violence. We have to change. The society has to change. We don't want to change. We can continue in this modus operandi and expect to change. This is a result of failing society for years. You ever hear about thiamine?
Ever heard of what?
Thiamine is a chemical that is in food that helps people to be like how you and me is thinking today. That is subtracted for food to make them youth like that. Go and take there's a book of literature to read. It's named Nutricide, written by a doctor from Dominica. He was a U.S. doctor in the U.S. Army, Dr. Leila Africa. Go and see what is done to these youths before you start to communicate, before you start to criticize. None of you never done a comprehensive study.
Caller, with respect.
Look at the food they eat, Mr.
Caller, with respect. Yeah. You realize as I'm listening to you blame TV, you blame the food, you blame the food. Caller, just hear me out. You blame TV, you blame the food, you blame yacht full of guns, you blame all of that. But somehow, you're not putting the responsibility on the person who's pulling the trigger.
Because he is manipulated into doing that.
Oh, really? So let me ask you something.
Manipulation.
Let me ask you something. Let me ask you so how come? Let me ask you something. How come you are not manipulated?
Me because I do things different. I eat different.
Oh.
And I think different.
So it's what you eat.
Yes, what you eat helps to make you.
Oh, okay.
Go and check this one. I'm putting it out to you. The Nutricide. Go and search for that book and see what is being done to the children. Stop regurgitating the garbage that the sports send out from the white supremacists. But they must blame the youth and blame this thing. When we ain't blaming them for manufacturing all them guns and sending them down to the Caribbean. Okay, but where they go at 50 guns to one person? How Jamaica go have so much mass murder? They're dumping the guns in the Caribbean. I mean, nobody holding them responsibility.
Caller, let me tell you now, I am agreeing. Caller, I am agreeing with all that you're saying, you know. Where you and I are parting companies, you want to blame everybody except the people who are using the gun.
I'm not letting them off.
Well, I want to hear you because you're going all around, you're dancing around the chin band. And the man who used the gun.
I was intermediary. I used to go to New Horizons and speak to youth, go to the prison and give them Black history books. There is not Marcus Garvey said this year, people without the knowledge of their past history, origin and culture, they treat out root. That's how much books, Black history books, have any political party put in any library in any school in St. Kitts. None. You see them going without the past history, origin and culture. And they are true without roots. We can't run from that.
And so because they're true without roots, they're going to kill people, that's what you're saying?
But what true without root? But a true without root is good for the fire. And that's what your Bible says. We have failed, the society is failing.
Well, I agree with you that the society is failing. All right, thank you, caller. I do agree that the society...
Love, and I hope that we could come together and unite and deal with this problem, you know?
Well, we have to. So thank you for your call and for your perspectives as always. And I agree, caller, that the society is failing. But the point that I was trying to get at, you make some very valuable arguments. But that is perhaps part of our problem. Because when a youth goes out and kills his brother, goes out and kills his neighbor, goes out and kills somebody he went to school with, grew up with, it's as if we are falling all over ourselves to find an excuse as to why he did it. Oh, he had no father in the house. Oh, he grew up poor. Oh, he watched a lot of TV. Oh, he listened to violent songs. And almost as if we are saying it is not his fault. And that's the bit that I'm getting at. Yes, all of those things contribute, but at the end of the day, all of us have a choice that we can make. And all of us know the difference between right and wrong. So we must also hold people accountable for their actions. Instead of this Lord, Lord and wringing of hands and Lord, give him a chance, because Lord, he grew up hard. Well, everybody grew up hard if that's the test. Everybody grew up hard. Which of us growing up down Henley Part 1970, 71, 72 didn't have days of hungry? Didn't have to go out there go look guinea and mango and drink water, drink swank. Call anyone named Swank. Sugar and water. Swank. And we not kill nobody. We not kill nobody. We not thief from nobody. Because your mother told you, if I did not give it to you, do not bring it in my house. That's how we were raised and that's how we lived. So I don't understand this argument all of a sudden that, oh, somebody watch TV and so they want to go kill people. We are giving people a pass for bad behavior by bringing all of these excuses. Blame the Prime Minister. Blame the politician. Blame television. But every youngster who goes out there and does what he does knows that what he's doing is wrong. And yet we say, somehow, we must excuse it. Let me go back to the phone. Caller, you're on the air.
Hello, Willard.
You're on the air.
Yes, I would like to touch base on another topic of the school children of Nevis, actually.
Go ahead, caller.
I feel that the Nevis children who attend public school are not able to freely express themselves.
Caller, you're on the air, so go ahead. Just explain what you mean.
You know, in terms of the Nevis here rules, I feel that we should be able to express ourselves as individuals and not be so how to say it, feel so control. I feel like we should have a little bit of freedom and find ourselves as young individuals. You have
an example that you can bring it home for us, because you're talking in a very general way. When you say more freedoms, what is it you would like children to be able to do that they're not able to do now?
You know, well, sometimes you go to school and most of us, we have our hair, you know, neat, but through there is a certain length that we have to abide by.
Mm-hmm.
We are not allowed to, you know, express ourselves. So sometimes, even though we have our hair well kept, we make sure when we go to school we look like presentable young men. We are still forced to cut our hair. So I feel like we should at least be given the chance to correct ourselves and given the chance to show that we can control ourselves as young children.
Well, I hear the point that you're making. I think it goes, broadly speaking, to what we call the uniform policy at our public schools.
Yes.
And the truth is that there is a very real debate on that. Some insist that having uniforms and having uniformity and requiring that students cut their hair and have a certain appearance, that is important. And others argue,
at the end of the day, we are still children and we still have to obey by certain rules.
Well,
we are not adults.
Well, and those are some of the rules that are put there for children to abide by. The issue that comes up now is that some people say that those types of rules restrict the child's individuality and restricts them from, as I think you're arguing, from being able to express themselves.
Of course.
Right. So that is the debate. I confess that it is a legitimate debate, but the current formula that we have in our school system is that the children wear uniforms for the most part. I think they have certain days when they don't. And part of that uniform policy, they tell you about the color, the type of uniform, even the length of your skirt, and all of these things are set out. And it's not only for the men, because the women as well, the girls as well, have certain rules applied to how they appear.
Of course.
Right? So I think it's a legitimate discussion to have. I confess that the uniform policy has worked fairly well for St. Kitts and Nevis, and let me say for Nevis more specifically, since I'm more familiar with the Nevis experience. And the idea really is it helps to teach discipline. It helps to bring some conformity, uniformity to the students. There are no distractions. Nobody comes school with yellow hair and red hair and, you know, tattoo and earring.
I'm not talking about keeping here well and so forth, you know.
No,
I just feel like as children you should leave a little room for, you know, for us to mold ourselves, you know. So instead of forcing us, you know, because when you force a child to do certain things, when they grow older, they feel like, oh, I'm free, so now I could do this and I could do that. But now if you allow a child to farm themselves, and as I say, what I was trying to say, not to keep our hair well or anything, but at least just loosen up a little bit, you know, and the hair rules for the Nevis boys, because, you know, you got to let us farm ourselves, because if you let us farm ourselves, it's like, okay, we able to make up like, okay, my hair should keep this way and my hair should keep that way, because we know how to look presentable on our own. But now, when you do this, when you force us to have our hair a certain kind of way, now you put in pressure on the child, and now you feel like, okay, I can't wait to get out of school, I can't wait to do this and I can't wait to do that. So then when the time comes, you know, they're not how you wanted them to come out to be.
Carl, I think your point is well made. I'm not going to argue with you at all, because I don't think I will win the argument. But I hear you, I understand what you're saying, and I believe that that's a debate that really has to continue, a conversation that has to continue. What is the right balance? Because really that's what it comes down to.
Yes.
You know, what is the right balance? Because you want the children to be in a structured system as well. You want them to have discipline as well, because that's going to be important for them going into life. I mean, any job you're going to, anything you're going to will have requirements, right? School, whatever, it will have requirements. So the question really is, where do you strike the correct balance? And I think that is the debate. But I think you make a legitimate point. I believe you have enriched the conversation this evening, so thank you for calling in and raising that issue. As I said, I am not sure where that issue is ultimately going to end up, but if I'm understanding you correctly, I think you're asking for a bit more flexibility.
Yes, a little bit more flexibility.
Right.
Not to just keep our hair in that kind of way, but, you know, just allow us to express ourselves just a little more, you know?
All right. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've had some interesting calls tonight. We have 5 minutes left, and we can take a few more calls during that time. The numbers again are 869-469-1616, and let's go straight back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark. Hello?
Good evening.
Good evening, you're on the air.
Yes, this youngster need to know, when I was a child, I speak as a child, I understood as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. Rules are made for children. If we did need parents, God won't allow us to give us parents. So he need to understand, when they have their own way, they won't go the way they should go. When I was a child, you have a child, you have adult. Child to take child place, adult take adult place. Good evening.
Well, thank you very much for that. And, you know, it's an interesting debate, because it brings us back to the discussion we're having on deviant behavior and criminality. And the question that sometimes arises is, were those children who are now acting in this deviant way, did they have the necessary structure in their life, or were they allowed to do whatever they want to do from early? So you have all of these issues. But I think, in fairness, caller, that while your point is valid and very much a traditional point, that the youngster also made a valid point, asking about the possibility of greater flexibility in our system, particularly in our public school system. So as I said, I think it's a legitimate debate with legitimate points on both sides. Let's go back to the phones. Okay, we've lost that caller. Caller, please call back in. 469-1616 and 469-1700. We're coming to the close of the show, so we can probably take another 1 or 2 calls, caller. So if you're still out there and you want to be a part of the show, you are free to call back in. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been having a fulsome discussion this evening on a variety of topics. We spoke about Culturama. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening, caller. Caller, we're sorry. Please hang up and call right back. Sometimes we get that sound. Are you there?
Children, what I find with the children,
yes,
the parents are responsible for the bad things that the children do. Because when you complain to parents about what the children are doing, you get bad language. Right? And they tell you, oh, don't worry about that, you got big this, you got big that. That is not the point. As a child, I was told, never look at what you see other people have. Work for what you want in life. You are not supposed to encourage your children to go around and steal from others and destroy other people's property. It's wrong. And they know exactly, the parents know exactly what they're doing. They need to control the children and educate the children, and not have the children doing a lot of wrongdoing and giving you bad language on the children's behalf. And the children's mouths are very nasty as well. And this is what's going on here in Nevis. Our nice little Nevis. The parents has a lot to answer for. Correct?
Caller, I agree with you 100%. So I can't argue. I can't respond except to say I agree with you. And your call has brought us to the end of our show.
Yes, and I wanted to get in before because there's a lot of things more I wanted to discuss, because I do not like the way Nevis is going.
All right. Well, we don't have time for all of that.
Island, and it's been spoiled.
We don't have time for all of that. We have next week.
Okay,
the show starts at 8.
night.
So please call in earlier and you get as much time as you need. The band has struck up. That means we have to go. Ladies and gentlemen, the show finishes at 10 o'clock. So we still have a minute or so. So I will just use that for my wrap up, just to say thank you to everyone who called, everyone who was a part of the show this evening. I think we had some very interesting calls. We set out, of course, what has been happening on the island. We started by thanking Jehovah God for sparing us the ravages of Ernesto. Extended praise and commendations to our public service teams at Solid Waste, Nevelic, Water Department, and of course Public Works, and the roads that stood up so very well. The fact that our resilience was on display, and the fact that by the all clear given, we had electricity back to 99.5% of the island. I think that that's a remarkable achievement. We never lost water, and our roads did not suffer any damage, which points to excellent engineering, all done by our own local people. I'm very, very grateful for that. I think that we are on the right path, on the right track, and we all need to just get together and work together. The youngsters out there committing crime, please put down your guns. Done with the foolishness. Go look work, because there's work there. Try to build a family, build something, and put away this foolishness, which always end in one of two places, either Britannic, or its equivalent in St. Kitts, Springfield, or the jailhouse. There's no other place for it. So please put it aside. And this fame that it looks like some are looking for, it really makes no sense. At the end of the day, you hurt the community, you hurt your family, and you see your loved ones get hurt around you as well. Let us please put that aside and step up and lend our talents to nation building. That's our show for this evening. Thank you, good night, and God bless you. This show is rebroadcast right here on Von Radio tomorrow at 1 p.m. Thank you. Good night.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or its advertisers.